Hi there. I'm Dr. Myrdalis Diaz-Ramirez, and this is the Design Your Physician Life podcast. Welcome to this episode brought to you by our maxAllure Mastermind, an exclusive mastermind for physician entrepreneurs. Today, we have a wonderful guest, Dr. Hanae Tokita. She's an anesthesiologist and creator of GAMS, G-A-M-S. That's compression stockings for hardworking women. We have a great conversation with Dr. Tokita about how to take your product idea and make it a reality. This whole process, the entrepreneurial process of creating and selling a product. Are you ready? Let's go.
Welcome to the Design Your Physician Life podcast, where you will get excited about being a physician, learn the tools that can help boost your success, and great tips from successful doctors. Join us to unlock the keys to an amazing physician life. And now, here's your host, Dr. Myrdalis Diaz-Ramirez.
We're very excited today. We have Dr. Hanae Tokita. She's an anesthesiologist, and she's going to be talking to us today about her experience in anesthesiology, being a physician, and also an entrepreneur. Welcome. How are you doing today?
Thank you for having me. Yes, doing okay. Thank you so much.
So we are very excited because we want to talk to you about your career and about your product. We're very, very happy to hear about that. I usually like to start with talking about what inspired you to be a physician. So let's go there. When was that moment that you said, "Oh, I'm going to be a physician"? What happened there?
Yeah, I mean that's a good question, and I'm sure everybody gets asked that a lot, being in medicine. But my story began. I come from a family of physicians. My grandfather, my father, my uncles are from Japan. So that side of my family, there were a lot of doctors, and I remember, my grandfather was an ENT back in the day when they removed tonsils in the office, and I remember seeing this giant jar of tonsils and spending a lot of time in his clinic and, seeing the medications be compounded. That was back in the day when they did all that stuff. And my father became sort of the unofficial sort of family doctor in our expat community in Tokyo. So I remember a lot of the local international folks, teachers, and other people who were in Japan in the 80s and 90s in our area would come to our house, and if they had some kind of medical ailment or issue, and I would watch my dad kind of be that person with that expertise. So I sort of grew up with that influencing me. But to be honest, I'm not a science person. I didn't have a strong background in science. I was more of a humanities person. So history and English and more of the creative fields really interested me. So in college.
When you talk about that, was like high school, you were like that high school, you never thought you were going to be a doctor despite all the doctors in your family?
I loved the idea of it. But I just didn't think I had the aptitude for it in science. And
Why
I was,
is that?
I really struggled. I felt like in science and math, I had to work twice as hard as everybody else to get it. So I really struggled with that. But I loved stories of history and English. And so I thought, in college, I thought, I'm not going to totally give up the idea of possibly going into medicine, but I'm going to try to take the time and do what I really love doing. And so I took some of the science courses over the summer, and I tried to really focus on what I loved. And I found that, I was able to kind of marry the two by focusing on the history of science. And so that was what I really found my passion in. So I graduated with a degree in history. And then after college, I took a few years to really figure out what I wanted to do. I was a waitress. I waited tables. I worked on a documentary film. And then I worked briefly as an editorial assistant at a publishing house. And I realized that, something was missing. And I really didn't want to give up that dream that I had underlying sort of to go into medicine. So I got my act together, took the MCATs, was fortunate to get into medical school. And that was sort of the story of how I got into medicine.
Exciting, because you were not a straight shooter. You were like, a little bit of a zigzag right there. And it's interesting to hear you saying to yourself, like, I don't have what it takes to be a doctor, yet you did, the basic steps, and it was always in your heart, and you made it.
Yeah. I always have that feeling like I'm never, I'm never there. I always have to work hard. But yeah, I did finally make it, but it was definitely a lot of work, as you probably know as well. And it's a lot of tests and a lot of studying and giving up a lot of time and years of your life. But it is definitely worth it, and I have no regrets, and I'm very proud of my career and what I'm doing now. So
So we call those worthy challenges, right? Instead of hard, it's a
absolutely.
worthy challenge you choose. So let's go back in time. Did your grandfather have the opportunity to see you become a physician?
Unfortunately not. He actually passed away when I was young, and that was the reason why we actually moved to Japan. So my family, we were originally in the U.S. and we moved to Japan because my grandfather, ironically, he was an ear, nose, and throat doctor, but had oral cancer, and so we moved there for what we thought was going to be a year, so we could take care of things. And my parents ended up living there for 30 years. But yes, unfortunately, he didn't get to see me become a physician, but he did have a lasting influence on me and, what I've become.
And what were your father's words, if you remember anything, like, graduating from not choosing anything science per se in college, then coming back? What was his influence there?
So my parents, my father and mother both, pretty much said, whatever you want to become, we'll support you, but it's very important that you are able to support yourself and be able to be independent, never depend on anybody if you can help it. And I think there was a little bias because I was interested in, becoming a documentary filmmaker and doing all these types of things. But I think my father was especially, like, how are you going to support yourself with that? It's really a tough career path. And I wanted to kind of explore that myself before I, turned to medicine. But medicine, and job security, that's not the only reason why I chose that field. It was just something that was always important to me, is to have a career, have the advanced education so that I can always, have a job and have that security to support myself.
So you grew up watching tonsils on a in a jar, and your father being the physician for the town, right?
hmm
How did you get to choose anesthesiology?
So I chose anesthesiology pretty late in medical school. A lot of my classmates knew right away, early on, the field they wanted to pick. And I sort of took my time. I'm a very technical person. I love working with my hands, first and foremost. And, I considered general surgery. I love the diagnostic aspect of internal medicine. I love the medicine part, but I knew I wanted to be more active in what I did in my day to day. So I thought I was going to initially go into emergency medicine. And then I met with my dean, as we all do as third year medical students. And she actually convinced me to consider anesthesiology. And so I did a sort of scrambled into a last minute rotation in anesthesiology at a small community hospital outside of Boston. And the attendings that I worked with were just incredible, amazing people. They loved teaching. They all had these awesome hobbies, flying planes, baking artisanal bread. I thought this is the type of person I want to be in 10
Anesthesiologists
years.
are cool people.
Yeah,
We
absolutely.
all are. I'm
Yeah,
biased, but we are.
I agree. Like, cool to talk to, cool what we do every day. And so I realized then and there, this, not just because what I love doing right here as a medical student, but this is an example of what life will be 10 years from now. These people are still very happy with their jobs. They love what they do. They love having me in the operating room and teaching. They love talking about their families and their lives outside of medicine too. So it was a good balance, They seem to have good work-life balance.
Can you think about what your dean saw in you that said, why don't you try anesthesia and qualities you can think now that maybe you didn't see then?
Yeah, I mean, I think she knew that I loved sort of the more of an active, not chaos per se, because anesthesia is not about chaos, but I think ER can be about sort of a managed chaotic situation. But I think she knew that I wanted to be in an environment that was sort of more fast paced.
Like
Um,
acute care,
yeah, yeah,
intensity at
yeah.
times.
And what she said was that, being an anesthesiologist, it is fast paced, but it's a very controlled environment, and you have one patient at a time. It's not like you're managing, 5 patients at one time. So, I had never really been exposed too much to anesthesia in my medical student, as a medical student at that point, just a couple weeks during my general surgery rotation. So I was just so happy that she recognized that that was a good field and a good fit for me. And yeah, so
Mentorship is so important. Mentorship as we go through our career is so important. I remember, from being little, like admiring my science teacher and having that feeling, and then going all the way. And you've had it through your grandfather, your father, and then this other dean, which made such a huge difference. So it's very important that if we haven't had that experience, I think as a tip for people who might be listening to this, doesn't matter which stage you are in a career, you can be a mentor and you can be a mentee to others. So that connection is really important, especially in medicine. Now we're gonna move on to, I'm so intrigued about your company. Let's talk about it a little bit, and then how you became inspired and what inspired you specifically to take the step and become an entrepreneur, which you are.
Thank you. Thank you. We're in the early stages of a startup company. And so I have a business partner who is not in medicine, but we were good friends. And so the story behind our startup is that we both have an obsession with the particular product, which is compression stockings. And, we thought it was a little bit silly because, traditionally compression stockings are things that your grandmother wears, or, young women don't really know too much about that. But both of us had been wearing compression socks, I guess, secretly for many years. And I actually started wearing compression socks as an intern. I was on my pediatrics rotation. I did a transitional internship, and one of the rotations was peds. And one of my friends gifted me with a pair of very expensive premium compression socks. And I just couldn't believe, after 24 hours on my feet, I just couldn't believe the difference that they made. And so from that moment on, I was hooked, but they were pretty expensive. So I, had to buy kind of less.
What's expensive?
They were like $40 a pair, which as an intern, is very expensive. Even now, it's very expensive. But anyways, I wore out those socks, and I was able to get a few more pairs, use those throughout residency. And, a few years ago was sitting and talking to my friend, and I realized that, she also was obsessed with compression socks, and she's a designer. She works at a desk all day. I'm on my feet all day, but both of us realized that they really benefit, no matter, if you're at a desk working from home or on your feet. And we realized that the options on the market, were, sort of traditionally socks, I think, are often made by sort of men, designed by men, and for women, kind of like bra companies too, traditionally lingerie companies. So we realized, we're women. We know exactly what women want. We want something that's thinner, sleeker, that you can wear under boots, under jeans, under scrubs, that are not thick and itchy, that don't look like something, fluorescent. We want something that's a little more stylish. So that was sort of when we came up with our idea for GAMS compression socks. So that's the story behind that. It's been interesting because I'm still working full time. So all my work on this startup has been on my nights and weekends. So it's definitely, been a labor of love, but we're really passionate about what we do. And it's very exciting to have a product that, is meant to ultimately like uplift women.
So tell us about that process, because, when people say, oh, I don't have time, right? And you're working full time, you're working all day long, taking care of these patients. And as I say, anesthesiologist, and I'm a surgeon too, I do pain management, we do surgery, but I think that the anesthesiologists are saving the patients from the surgeon who's trying to kill them, opening them and all that stuff. But then you've had the time, you've taken the time to be an entrepreneur. So did you look into somebody? Did you get some coaching? What was the process there for you for starting like a product from an idea and taking that to a product and design and tryouts and distribution and all that stuff?
First of all, I'm very fortunate to have my business partner. She and I came from really minimal to no business background. So we have bootstrapped this entire company from the beginning. And I think it started out just kind of bouncing off ideas and then sort of growing from there and thinking about all the different aspects of it. First and foremost, the product and the development of that, and trying to figure out, what we want that to look like. For example, it was very important to us that our product was premium, made here in the USA. So we had a lot of control over the properties of the actual stocking, even though it was a little bit more expensive, working with a sock mill in North Carolina to design the exact product. And I think once we actually came up and were able to get the exact product that we wanted, we were able to do the marketing and the website and grow from there. But most importantly, we need the perfect product, because you can't have a business unless there's something that you feel is just you're passionate about it and you think it's transformative.
Where did you find those the place in North Carolina? How did you find them?
So we pretty much just cold called different factories there. And just talked about what our vision was and what we wanted in a product. And, there were only, a couple of places that were, as excited as we were and saw the vision that we did. And then we decided on one that we liked in particular. So it did take a lot of just putting yourself out there and rejections, but then, still believing that this is something that you think is an amazing product, and having that conviction to move forward. So that's how it was, just making a lot of calls and knowing that maybe hopefully one will work out.
So now you have a product. How did you decide on how you're going to sell it? Like, online versus going to a store, locating store, presenting the product to the buyers. How's that process been for you?
So, initially we really wanted to start out by, going to, meetings, conferences for physicians, nurses, and just trying to do some market research that way. Sell, almost like have a lemonade stand type of thing, just so we could get immediate feedback and get to know the customer. But, in this day and age, things are different, and the pandemic happened. And so we kind of moved to a total sort of online platform to sell the socks. And, there's different ways online. You can go through, Amazon or, different platforms like that. But we thought we wanted to have more control. And so we're starting out just from our website.
And how do you do the distribution? Is this done like out of North Carolina directly, or does it go? What's the process there for your socks?
That's a good question. So we actually have the product ourselves. So it's old school. We package it up ourselves. We mail it ourselves. Everything, we do is just us. So it's, very
This is so exciting. This is so exciting. So how have you seen the reception, or, how it's been sold, your growth, and what's your next step, you think, like your next, where you want to be, the next goal?
So, I think we want to, believe it or not, we kind of want to stay small right now, just because it's just the two of us. And we've been selling quite a few pairs of socks, so it's very exciting. I think one of the major issues also affecting us wanting to stay small right now is this global issue with supply chain that affects, pretty much every single industry out there. Which obviously is a result of the pandemic as well. So we're trying to kind of not get too excited too quickly, but to try to keep it sort of slow growth. And we're considering, selling on Amazon as well, but we haven't, done that yet.
So you've mentioned some challenges, right? That you probably not expecting, like supply chain. Like you don't think about that to a certain extent. We do think, because we don't get maybe some things that we need for our patients, and we have shortage of IV fluids or this or that, but you never think that you're going to maybe be short of materials for making socks, right?
Mm-hmm.
In general, having been some through some of these challenges, how do you think that might have helped you or not being a physician, or vice versa? How maybe being a physician helped you being an entrepreneur?
I mean, I think to the question of how being a physician helped me to be an entrepreneur, I think especially being an anesthesiologist, one of the most important qualities is that you have this ability to be resilient and flexible in changing times and in very stressful times. You are always calm, cool, collected. And so I think that has really helped me in many aspects of my life, including being an entrepreneur and dealing with sort of these ups and downs of supplies, added costs going up and down. So I think that that sort of outlook, that you weather the storm, you don't kind of freak out and give up during a stressful time. I think that that's something that has carried over into the entrepreneurship aspect of my life. Um, I think something that I've learned from the entrepreneurship that's affected my day to day as a physician is sort of time management, because I know I have this project I'm working on after hours, and I know that my time is limited, and I have to be able to bucket my time and my projects. So instead of just kind of scrolling on social media every night, I'm working. And on the weekends, I want to enjoy the weekends with my family. So I have to be able to say this amount of time I'm going to devote to the startup, and this amount of time I'm going to just be able to relax and just, completely separate from work and, both my work as a doctor and my startup life.
That's awesome. Let's talk about your physician life. We've been through something that you mentioned earlier that everybody has been through, which is the pandemic. We never imagined in a million years for us we would go through something like this. And it has increased the level of burnout through physicians, especially female physicians. And I'd like to know a little bit about your burnout story. What do you think? Have you experienced burnout? And if you've been through that, what things have you done to be able to deal with burnout so that we can recommend maybe to some other physicians some resources?
Yeah, I think this is a really important and timely question. I think that, like you said, anesthesiologists, in particular, women anesthesiologists, have amongst the highest rates of burnout. Um, and so I think, most important is first of all, talking about it, acknowledging that it is a problem. And I think what I'm seeing right now is on social media, on Twitter, is just a lot of talking about it, which I've never ever seen before, because traditionally physicians were expected to just absorb all the extra work, all the extra stress, and the, piling on of this and that with no time or, anything extra given to us to help us. So I think that talking about it, there was a recent big study published about this in anesthesiology. I think these are the first important steps. There's also a lot of solutions that have been proposed out there that are not sort of, perhaps going to solve the problem, like meditation and yoga, which are important, obviously, but they're not the ultimate cure for it. I think it's an ongoing struggle, but I think, like I said, the first step, knowing that it's a problem, and even finding small ways to give grace to yourself, and to, just start saying no to certain things that you really don't have the time or bandwidth for, when before you would just keep saying yes, yes, yes. I think that's something that's been very important. Also, turning off your email, your phone, not answering every single email work related on your off time, as long as it's not an emergency. If it can wait, it can wait. Your time is your protected time. So again, I'm still learning sort of how to deal with burnout, but those are things that I'm starting to do for myself that I'm hopeful will make a difference.
Yeah, we know how to say yes to many things, and it's always a challenge, but learning to say no to things that are not in in our priorities so that we can then say yes to healthy things. And as you say, like yoga and Tai Chi and meditation are super important tools. However, they're not the answer. We have to deal with a comprehensive approach, basically a holistic approach to this problem with burnout, which is certainly multifactorial, is systemic. And the most important thing is it's finally being recognized. And we talked about, and as we were discussing earlier, I've never seen so many physicians wanting to help each other. We really need each other. And with social media and podcasts like this and different programs, we are able to get closer. So if anybody is listening to this who needed help is available. And you can reach out to any of us, or there's a lot of resources out there for that. I'm very excited to have you had talk to us today about your journey, your career, your second career now as an entrepreneur. Are there any final thoughts you might have for our audience today?
I guess I just want to say that we have, as physicians, I think this outlook of perfectionism sometimes, and I think we have to just let go of that life is a journey. We're never going to be perfect, but you have to find your passion and just give yourself grace and time to work on things that really bring you happiness and joy. And there's plenty, like you said, there's support out there. Don't be afraid to ask for help, to reach out. We know how hard it is being a physician, being in medicine. We've all been through that struggle. And like you said, it's wonderful to see all these physicians reaching out to help each other. And I certainly feel the same way about, wanting to help others as well.
So if I want to get some Tokita socks, Dr. Tokita socks, tell me where I have to go. I want to get some.
Sure. So our website is HelloGams, GAMS.com. And we have a special for those who are on the line. There's a code that's Leg Love BOGO, BOGO, which stands for buy one, get one. So you basically get 2 socks for the price of one, and that'll go to the first 50 people who use that code.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. We're so happy, and congratulations on your business and good luck. And I hope that we have enough material for many socks for years to come. Thank you very much.
So much. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks. Have a good day.
You too. Take care.
Guys, that's it for today. Stay tuned for more of our Design Your Physician Life podcast, which was brought to you today by our maxAllure Mastermind, an exclusive mastermind for physician entrepreneurs. We will continue to bring you useful resources to develop your physician entrepreneur life, like we did today with Dr. Hanae Tokita. You can visit her compression stocking website at HelloGams.com. That is HelloGams.com. Thank you for joining us. We hope you had a great time as we did. Stay in touch with us. Visit our website, www.maxallure.com. This is MAXALLURE. And please don't forget to subscribe, like us, give us 5 stars, and share the love with your friends and family. See you later. Thanks. Bye.
Please remember that Design is not providing specific financial, medical, or career advice. Our only intent is to stimulate your appetite for growth by sharing our experience and those of our speakers, coaches, and guests. Your personal growth and success will be unique to your circumstances and your hard work. We sincerely hope you enjoyed the show and look forward to seeing you next week.